Oscar Bevis, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Bivol here in San Diego with Frank Smith. Frank, we've just had the Canelo and Bivol press conference, a big media turnout, and it just feels like a big event, which it is when it's around Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, every fight Canelo's involved in is a massive fight, but this one moving up to 175 again, he's done it once against Kovalev, but a great fight. Dmitry Bivol's been waiting for this opportunity for a long, long time, and he's ready for it. So can't wait for this one. All announced May 7th. T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, the first major show we've done in Las Vegas, so it's exciting and can't wait to get started.
Obviously, I know Matchroom are very open with us and open with the media at times. I know things were hinted in the build-up, but just sort of to get it out there and make it public knowledge, how sort of satisfying was that for you to just say to the world, look, we've landed Canelo Alvarez, when we know how sought after that signature is?
Yeah, massive. Look, it's taken a lot of work. There's a lot of time's gone into it from a number of different people. So yeah, it's always a huge news. He's the number one star in world boxing. So to have him as part of the team is very exciting. And worked very hard and good to get it announced.
Yeah, I said to Eddie, I know obviously we will look at the fights as a perspective of a fan, I suppose. There's the financials as well, but does it kind of give you satisfaction in the fact that he wants to work with Matchroom? He's mentioned Eddie's name, and just as a company, I suppose there's little intricacies that, I don't know, the pound-for-pound star of boxing prefers to work with you guys.
Yeah, look, I think we pride ourselves on everything we do. We work very hard to make the fighters, happy, and ultimately they're in charge, in our business, and that's the key for us. So it's an honour that he appreciates that. We work with some of the best fighters in the world, and to have him as part of the stable as well is great, and looking forward to this fight, September as well. And hopefully, after the September fight, we would have promoted 5 of his last 6 fights. So hopefully we can continue relationships, and it's good, very exciting.
How important was it for DAZN as well?
Yeah, 100%. Canelo Alvarez, to have him on the platform. DAZN have built a great platform in the US, and to get him back on the platform again was massive. We obviously worked quite hard to try and make the Plant fight work. That didn't happen, but it's great to have him back. And DAZN are a big supporter of him. They broadcast, I guess that will be 9 of his last 10 fights. By the end of the year, something 8 or 9 fights. So they've been a big supporter of him, and it's good to have him back on board.
Tell me why, from a fight perspective, Dmitry Bivol and Gennady Golovkin are 2 fights that I suppose we'll put them up against Benavidez and Charlo, because they were the 2 offers that publicly everyone was talking about. Tell us why Bivol and Golovkin are the better of the 2 fights in that choice.
Look, I think Bivol moving up to 175 again. Bivol is the top guy in the division, and it's a great fight. It's an intriguing fight. I think Bivol's he wants the big fights. He wants the big names. I think he's going to look. You're going to see the best performance you've seen from him. He's waited a long time for this, and then everything goes in the direction it needs to. Golovkin would be a big fight for September. That's the biggest, marketable, most mainstream fight there is. We've seen 2 huge fights between those guys already. So, that's the fight that makes the most sense. Look, he get stick if people saying he's moved off fighting this person, that, but he's done it.
Either way, it would be that way, isn't it? Yeah.
He can't win. So look, he's stepping up to 175 again to fight Bivol, who's, like I say, arguably the best in the division, and you have to respect him for that. And like I say, he can't win whichever route he goes down.
In terms of conversations that were had with Canelo, was there sort of an expressed interest in Golovkin more than others? Because obviously, look, the size of the fight for one, but we had the first one, sort of a controversial decision in many people's eyes. He won the second fight in many people's eyes as well. But is it just kind of a big fight as a trilogy, and perhaps put into bed, even though he's 1-0 up in that sort of series, just put into bed everything that people can say about the first fight? Yeah,
look, like I say, commercially it's the biggest fight out there. People have been waiting a long time to see that third fight, and we're glad, if we, he's obviously got to get through Bivol, which is no easy task. It's a tough fight at 175, and Golovkin's obviously facing Murata, which will be announced very soon. So, he's got some work to do before that point. Both the guys have, but I just think that fight made a lot of sense. There's a lot of sort of back and forth between the 2 of them, and I think we're going to be seeing a very interesting build-up.
Just theoretically, we know what boxing's like. The gods work in strange ways. I say strange ways. Murata is a live dog in that fight, and if he is to beat Gennady Golovkin, are we talking about Canelo Murata? Is that simple on the next Canelo date?
I think this is something we have to look. Both guys are 100% focused on the fight they got ahead of them. Canelo's got May 7th against Dmitry Bivol, and Golovkin's got Murata. So let's focus on that and then work from there and see how things play out. Anything can happen in this sport. That's what makes it so exciting.
Third fight, Frank, bring him to London. Bring him to London. Is it either that or he looks to sort of chase undisputed at 175? Is he going to be one of them two for the potential third fight?
I think, look, he'll decide as he goes along. He's shown time and time again he's willing to take on any challenge. So, 9 months is a long time in boxing. So he's got he's got May, and he's got September. And let's go from there. It'd be huge to bring him to the UK. That's something we've looked at before. So let's see how it plays out, as I say, but 100% focused on the first fight.
And just finally on Canelo, we hear so much about how Floyd changed the game financially. I mean, 160 million over what potentially 9 months is the sort of thing that NFL players, NBA players, and that get for year contracts. It's mega money. Is he sort of changing the landscape in his own way now financially? Will this change for other fighters, perhaps fighters further down the food chain?
Look, boxing's always been a massive sport, and there's always been the stars who have been healthily paid, and Canelo is one of those guys who has changed the sport. You mentioned Floyd Mayweather. He was money May, wasn't he? He was, all it was about was the money. I don't think so much Canelo is about legacy. It's about changing, taking challenges throughout, and he's showing that by stepping up a weight again. He could have, if he wanted, he could have easy fights and get paid great money. But he doesn't want to do that. He wants to take on the best. So I think that's the focus for him. And alongside that, he's the true pay-per-view star in the US. Quite easy to see, really.
Actually, I said final thing. Obviously, you mentioned pay-per-view in the US, and I suppose because I said earlier about the transparency at times of the likes of Eddie and Matchroom, it was always going to come with some form of backlash when you have the clips of him saying pay-per-view's dead, etc. It was always going to come with some form of backlash. But in the US, Canelo, a pay-per-view star.
Yeah, look, he's 100% he's a pay-per-view star, and at the same time as well, when we're competing for his signature with all these people who are putting it on a pay-per-view platform, we have to look at the model to make it work. And he breaks records, he does huge numbers, so it made sense. And it's easy to look back at things people said 4 or 5 years ago. Things change and business plans change. So I think it's there's still an unbelievable subscription on DAZN. Some great fights coming up. We've got unrivaled schedule out there in boxing, and pay-per-view for the biggest fights is going to be there. And in order to get Canelo on the platform, it's the way the model had to work. I think everyone can pull up these comments. They always miss certain bits as well. He did say.
Eddie did say to me, he said, you've got to clip the full. Yeah.
But the full clip is like pay-per-view is dead, except for major fights. Canelo, against whoever he fights, is in a major fight every time. These other guys, some of these other fights that you've seen on pay-per-view recently, whether on Fox, on Showtime, they're not big enough. But Canelo is a true pay-per-view star. I think you have to watch the full clip rather than just edited bits that Stephen Espinosa posts out because he's a bit salty.
Frank, we said we'll joke about it. The main man's going to be here in a bit, so we will talk about sort of the Fury Whyte press conference from yesterday. But just looking at it, the media attention, mad, and I suppose full on deserved. Everyone wants just a little snippet of what Canelo has to say.
It's very similar to when you started this, and the people around here, they were looking, weren't they? They were like, "Who's that fat Essex boy?" And then they thought, "No."
He's come a long way. San Diego, California. Canelo, you've come a long way.
I know, look at this. We started out at Peterborough Leisure Centre or York Hall or somewhere like that, and look at us now. So, no, you only have to look at the cameras around him over there. You obviously can't see it now because you're on my ugly mug, but he's a true superstar, and everywhere he goes is the same. And can't wait for May 7th, as I say, a huge night for us as well, doing our first big soul promotion in Las Vegas. So, very exciting. Looking forward.
Let's talk about Tyson and Dillian. Did you expect Dillian not to turn up yesterday? I mean, I suppose you would have known in advance, but I felt like some people kind of acted shocked. But I think, was it expected?
I think they made out with a press conference like it was going to be this big show and it's all going to kick off. But yeah, he wasn't there. Tyson created his own show as always. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't too surprised. But not long to go now, is it? It was 7 weeks of that fight. So yeah.
Was that on the advice of Matchroom not to turn up?
No, not at all. We're not, ultimately he just wants to be treated fairly, and, he'll do things but everything's got to make sense. So that's it. He's out in training camp, he's in Portugal training hard, and that's his focus.
you agree with the people who said that he should have turned up to the press conference? A fight of this magnitude. I know Tyson said when his kids look back in the future and say, "Dad, what a fight!" But press conference, where were you?
Yeah, but he's going to be there on fight night, isn't he? So ultimately, that's the moment that everyone's going to remember. That's the moment people are going to talk to him about, not the press conference. Everyone's got a view on these things, haven't they? But they don't actually know the finer detail around the reasons behind, what's going on. So, I think that Dillian and his team are working hard, and they made their decision. Fair play to them.
Yeah. And Tyson said as well. He said that Dillian doesn't want to come because it will potentially allow Tyson to get into his head. But he's already in his head if he hasn't turned up. Do you kind of agree with that statement?
Not at all. I don't think he's in his head at all. I think Dillian's just getting on with what he needs to do. There's other
I don't think there's like an ulterior motive. I know he said he don't want to come over and potentially catch COVID and whatnot. But from a mind games perspective, you don't think there's an ulterior motive to this?
Yeah, maybe Dillian Whyte's winning it. Everyone, do you know what? People have got short memories, haven't they? What about when Tyson Fury didn't turn up to his press conference with Klitschko? So, I'm not blaming either of them. But everyone's got these big opinions like, well, I didn't do that. Didn't mind when Tyson did it before. But maybe it's Dillian's mind games. Maybe he might be winning the war so far.
I think, I've seen a lot of people say that because of the percentage and there's been all this about what sort of money Dillian's going to get, he kind of feels like he doesn't want to be involved in any promotion. I mean, you know Dillian better than us, but...
Yeah, look, I think, like with purse bids, as always, purse bids are quite simple in a case of the terms and what you have to agree to do it. Ultimately, he needs to turn up, weigh in and fight on the night, and he's going to do that. Other bits and pieces, then, it needs to make sense for him. So, it's no big... everyone's making a big hoo-ha out of it. Dillian's doing what's right for him, He should have got more than 20% in the purse bid in the first place. So, fair play to him.
Will you guys, you and Eddie, more specifically, turn up to any of the fight week events? Because I think it was said that you weren't not invited. You just decided not to turn up, and that you are welcome to come to the fight week events. So
who's welcoming us? Sorry,
I can't remember who said what. There were so many interviews yesterday, but I think it was Eddie who said originally we're not welcome. But if you are welcomed, which I believe you will be for fight week, will you and Eddie turn up?
I'll go down there. Quite fancy it. I wonder if they'll give me a ticket to the show as well. Be quite nice. Maybe like not in the gods. Yeah. So let's.
Do you reckon that's what's going to happen? You and Eddie, back row, Wembley Stadium, 100,000 people in there, and you're the 99 and 100,000 highest.
I'll be eating my hot dog, drinking a beer. Let's wait and see what happens. It depends. We might have a show that weekend. Maybe not on that day, but around that weekend. So let's see where we are. Yeah.
It's kind of a whole. I don't know. I find it a little bit strange, all in all, don't you?
What? Sorry.
I know I haven't really just asked a question, but I just find it. I just find it strange, all in all, that Dillian going into, the biggest fight of his career, and there is, and I know from a personal perspective, it was won by Queensbury and Top Rank and whatnot. I just find it weird that there's sort of been no press involvement for either Dillian, you, or Eddie, on the whole. Like it's a weird feeling around it, because at the moment it kind of feels like we're waiting for them to announce an opponent for Tyson, and he's just doing press conference on his own.
Yeah, but it's not really our obligation as Matchroom to go and make a big noise about it and shout about it. They're the promoters, they got to promote the show. We are 100% behind Dillian Whyte. We'll do anything he needs us to do. We'll work hard in the background as and when where we're needed. But we're not going to be out there go and buy the pay-per-view now because it's just like Dillian hasn't posted about it, has he? And so it's not our job to promote their show. That's their job. We'll talk about it. Like, it's not like we're saying don't ask us.
We talk about every show I ask you about. So yeah.
So we're not like the kind of people who are like don't ask us questions about it because you're giving people exposure. But that's their focus. They got to go and promote the show and do whatever they need to do that.
Yeah. Obviously, tickets came on sale this morning. I saw some people who were like 140, 180,000 back. Did you expect the show to sell that well that quickly?
Yeah, look, I mean, it is a massive fight. So I didn't think it would sell that quickly. I think they've still got some tickets left, but it is a huge fight. 2 British heavyweights going at it for the WBC world title. So yeah, massive. So let's see, and look, good luck to him. If they have 100,000 in there, great, brilliant. It's good to see Frank doing a big show for once.
All right, Frank, on the Alexander Usyk situation, I know Eddie said, I think it was to an MMA page or something earlier I saw, that he had said something that Joshua could potentially have an interim fight. Obviously, look, I saw someone ask Alexander Usyk about what was next for him, and I don't know, I felt it was kind of asked in a bit of a disrespectful manner with everything that's going on at the moment. So you don't want to push too much, but obviously Anthony Joshua will want to get on with his boxing career, so is it potential that he could have an interim fight?
I think there's bigger things going on in the world that he's...
That's what I mean, you don't want to be disrespectful about it, do you?
So, like, you know, you have to everyone has to understand and respect that. You know, at the same time, we're looking at Anthony Joshua's career. So, look, let's see how things sort of play out over the coming weeks. And, you know, firstly, we've just got to, you know, send our prayers and love to everyone, you know, who's affected by this. So, you know, that includes Usyk, his family. So let's see how things play out on that front. I think it's to talk about it in too much detail would be wrong to do. And, you know, AJ wants to fight Alexander Usyk. AJ wants a rematch to bring his belts back. But, you know, let's see in terms of time frames how things play out, and you know it's sort of out of everyone's control at the minute. And you know we'll keep discussing with Usyk's team and go from there.
Well, yeah, things are changing day by day, so we'll just have to see how that plays out. One more thing from me, Frank. I know the governing bodies, WBC, WBO, and IBF have said we're not going to be sanctioning any Russian fighters. We've got a Russian fighter fighting Canelo. I know he holds a WBA belt. But is there kind of a little worry in the background that if the WBA are to follow suit and change their stance, that it could affect Canelo? Because we know he's about belts and legacy, and he most likely won't want to fight Dimitri for no belt.
Look, I don't think, you know, the WBA have approved the fight. I think you got to look at Dimitri Bivol's a fighter who, you know, has sort of given his life to boxing and has waited, you know, his whole life for an opportunity. Like, look, he's world champion already, but for an opportunity in a fight of this scale. This is the biggest fight of his career, and you know, all I can say on his behalf is that he wants to go in there. You know, like he spoke about today, he's not here to talk about politics. You know, ultimately everyone wants peace, but you know, his focus is the fight. I'm not concerned with the WBA. You know, the other governing bodies came out, but the WBA said they're going to keep all of their champions, etc. And you know, this fight's been approved, so you know, everything's going to plan.
Frank, thanks for giving me some of your time, and yeah, look forward to the rest of the fight week now.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you.